Hello and welcome to the Shiny Bees podcast, a podcast for those who like their knitting, comedy and yarn in equally large measures. I'm your host Joe Milmine and this is episode 107, Ish Tea and Tray Bake with Countess Ablaze.
I feel a need to laugh again with you, if that's alright.
Hello and welcome to the show. It's been a while, hasn't it? It has been a little while. Longer than I expected, but nevertheless, I'm back and I'm here. I'm not going to spend today telling you where I've been or what I've been up to or anything like that at all. I was thinking about bringing the show back. I've had some interviews recorded and it's nearly happened a few times in the past few months, but it just hasn't until today. And today it has come back because I feel like I've had something to say. Whereas before I've been working on other things, concentrating on other things, and I will share them with you. And if you're over in my Facebook group, you will know some of this already. But today I want to talk about more important things, which is to do with women, basically women, crafters, exposure, misogyny, charity crafting as an excuse. And who better to do that with than my good friend, not that we're friends because she doesn't have any, but if she did have friends, we would be friends, Lyndsey of Countess Ablaze, back on the show for the second time. And she has, in the last couple of days, been dealing with some misogynist BS, basically, some bollocks about exposure and everything else. And she's come up with her own kind of reply to that. And she talks about it in this episode. We both have a discussion about it. We're talking about exposure, we're talking about misogyny, and we're talking about using kind of charity as an excuse to do things that you probably wouldn't get away with otherwise. And we don't think that's cool, and that's not how charity work should be. And talking about her kind of reaction to that and how she's kind of turned it around and schooled these people on what charity and valuing yourself as a business and how to do it right, basically, or how to do it better than the way that they have done it. And I really wanted to share this with you because this issue was kind of blown up a bit on social for her on Instagram. Lots and lots of support, lots of people saying, it's not acceptable, we fully support you, it's brilliant that you've turned this around and made it into something really positive. And I love that. So I wanted to, we basically decided last night that we were going to record something today, and that's what we've done, and I am sharing it with you. So grab your knickers, Bolly, because you're going to need them for this episode, and I'm thrilled to be bringing it back to you as my first episode back after my sabbatical. So get your knitting and we will crack on with the show. I am super excited to be bringing on for the second time. Who knew? I think you are the first person that's ever got to grace my podcast twice, Lyndsey. But for the second time, and she's still not got on anyone else's podcast, I'm welcoming the wonderful Lyndsey, aka the Countess Ablaze, onto the show again today on International Women's Day, because we've got things to say, haven't we, Lyndsey?
We certainly have. Thank you very much for having me back, Joe.
I'm so excited. Any excuse to have a good chat with you, you know that, my friend. And we basically pulled this together out of our collective backsides last night after a bit of a kind of whirlwind day, and talking about something that's happened recently with you, Lyndsey, and an approach that's happened. And we had different ideas about topics that could come out of this, and I was like, you know what, let's do it. Let's just jump on. Let's have a conversation about this sort of thing that happens to us a lot as yarn crafters, as women, as business owners, and you are the person I want to have this conversation with. If I could pick anyone, it would be you. So in your own words, tell us about how we've kind of come to have this conversation today.
Okay, a couple of weeks ago, we were just winding up because we had a week off, we were just winding up for that, and a guy comes in, never clapped eyes on him in my life, and he was lovely, really nice guy, seemed to know what he was talking about, and he came in and he asked to talk to me, And he said that he was an employee of a local restaurant in the Manchester area. And he said that he was wanting to organise a charity event. It would be crocheting, something or other, I forget which now, for the local homeless. Anybody who knows Manchester, we have a real homelessness problem here. Mm-hmm. And he really banged on a lot about how it would be for charity. He was saying that he and the staff that he works with, they're all very lefty, they're all very progressive, saying all the right buzzwords. And I was feeling quite good. I'm like, okay, yeah. And he says, well, we're going to need some help with teaching. We're going to need, we want to put together some gift bags for the participants. So, if you could give something. And, we were winding down for a week off. I was exhausted. And I said to him, which I will say to anybody, I never agree to anything verbally. I want to have the brief in writing so that I know what my expectations are and I know what to expect from you, which is, sensible. It's good. It's how it's one of the things you should do when you run a business. You need to know what your T's and C's are. Mm-hmm. And he said, oh, well, I don't really have anything written for you. And I'm thinking, okay, right. But this is what I will send you the brief that I have written for my boss. And he sends that to me immediately off his phone. And after he'd gone, I mean, don't get me wrong, he was lovely. He gave me a very positive impression of himself. About half hour later, I got round to the email and I read it. As I said, I was tired and I glossed over it and I didn't really think much of it. And then I must have been thinking about it because I started to feel quite angry. And I've got it in front of me. And there were certain phrases in it that I realised had really annoyed me. First of all, he talked about how this restaurant doesn't really have any footfall, and it started to come across this brief as if he was trying to save this restaurant. And then he was saying that Countess Ablaze will do this, Countess Ablaze will do that. And yeah, and I'd never met this guy ever. So he's clearly not done his research. I'm the queen of saying no to everything.
Countess Ablaze will do nothing she doesn't want to do.
And he's like, she will provide X, Y, and Z for these gift bags, and I'm working all these costs out, and it's like, you want 40 gift bags. My yarn's what, £20 a pop? We're talking £800. Then he's wanting crochet hooks. Then he's wanting me to come in and teach for free. And as an introvert and on the spectrum, it's not just a case of dedicating a couple of hours for doing that. I also need the rest time afterwards that could actually run into a whole day off work. Mm. So, so we're talking actually, for a small business like mine, quite a significant amount of money lost. And then he goes on to explain, about how much the charity will make, and it's quite frankly naff all. Mm-hmm. And then he goes on about how this restaurant, and he talks about the return of investment. And then I started really getting knocked about this.
Yeah.
Because he starts going on about the cost, the cost of goods of things. It's like, let's go down to one of the wholesalers, and he actually says, we're going to go and we can serve them shit tea. And tray bakes. We can, £3 per head. We'll charge these women. He was targeting middle-aged women, he called us.
Thanks. 34.
Yeah. I think this is where my offence comes. I'm not ready to call them middle-aged yet.
No way.
I'm still youthful. No, but he broke it all down, and it was basically a case of the restaurant makes a shit ton of money. This guy, he has a small business of his own part-time, and he was saying, I'm not expecting to be paid for this. But I do expect that I am tagged in all social medias, and my logo is all over the place. Nothing about me, and that I have to lose a significant amount of money, but I will be given exposure, apparently, right? And he's, and in person, he was telling me, "Oh yes, we have got a massive following. We've got 20,000 followers on Instagram." And I'm going, "Well, I've got 36,000." You've not done your research, It's like, okay, right, So I got really irate by this. I'm sat on my hands for 3 hours, just seething. Quite frankly, it was just building up, and I just kept rereading it. I'm thinking, am I reading this right? I mean, first of all, he's offering me exposure. Secondly, he was really ageist and misogynistic in the way that he was treating my client base. And then thirdly, and probably really most importantly, I felt that this was masquerading as a charity event to save a business that appears to be failing. This email, it was a brief, clearly not written for my eyes. If one of my team sent an email out like that with proprietary business information in, we're having serious words. So there is no way this was written for me. And this, quite frankly, isn't really acceptable even as an internal communication. So, I'm just absolutely flabbergasted by the whole thing, really. And he goes on to say in this email, I've got it in front of me, I'm just like paraphrasing bits of it, because if I read it out loud, I'm just going to get really angry. He's like, we've got other members of staff who they're craftspeople themselves. They can teach cross stitch and DSLR lessons and quilting lessons. All really valuable, hobby crafts that are great to teach. But he goes on to say, we expect these members of staff to be paid as an artist, not as a waiter. Hello, when do I get paid?
And does it mean less then? If it's an artist, because he clearly doesn't value any of it.
Yeah, and just the whole thing, which I just was so angry. I was so absolutely angry, and I'm like, how do I respond to this? So I sat on my hands, and I'm going to swear now. I sat on my hands, and I just wrote back, "Go fuck yourself." Because what else do you say? What can you say to that? It's just, I'm not taking that. He's clearly not done his research.
Well, it's not even so much of not done the research, but he's been quite rude. And I think these are conversations that we need to have as artisans, as craftspeople, as handmakers, as people who just knit for a hobby. Like, you've brought out those 3 really important points there. This notion of exposure as payment, because you can bet your arse he wouldn't go and say that to a fella. I'm just willing to put that out there now. The misogyny of it all.
Yeah.
And the charity is an excuse thing, what?
I think they're all 3 really important issues, and the ones that crop up so much, in the craft industries.
For sure. So let's talk about exposure then. Let's dig into it, and let's have a chat about this, because he's given us some good content. Like, bless him, he's
a craftsman himself. He was a craftsman himself, and it was clear that he wanted to really benefit from the exposure himself for his craft business from running this event.
Interesting. So
where do other people benefit from this? There was no mention at all of really how I would benefit. It was just, the Countess will provide X, Y, and Z, and she's going to suck it up because she's got a lady business.
Oh, lady business. Lady business.
These ladies don't know what they're doing.
Lady business. No, because you're just playing it, because you're just a knitter, aren't you? Just a knitter. Just a lot of knitter. It's a bit of a joke, you're not a nana, and that's surprising. Even more surprising is your new rocks that you bounce around in. No massive boots.
I need them because I'm quite short.
Yeah, definitely. I should get some myself. I've been thinking about it, or possibly
Yeah.
like a cherry picker to stand on, because I am a little.
Yeah, I need to look a bit more domineering. So, new rocks it is.
It is. But this idea of exposure as a payment method, right? We've all, I've seen it a number of times. We've all been told this is an acceptable method of payment. No one's yet offered to pay me an exposure, I have to say. And we have had a conversation like, if I want exposure, I'll get my tits out. Like, we've had this conversation many times between us offline, and you've embodied that, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. But is this the first time you've been offered exposure as a payment?
No. And I'm going to be honest, it's one of those things that this is the first time I've been offered it in a long time. It was something that would come about much earlier on in my business, when, like a lot of people starting out, your confidence might not be as high. You might genuinely not quite know what you're doing, because I certainly didn't, not to the degree I know now. I've not really been offered exposure as my payment for a long time. Probably why I'm feeling quite insulted by it.
If he'd done his research, he wouldn't have bothered. He'd be like, no, she'll knock my head off. I'll just go ask someone else.
Yeah. So I don't know. I felt like perhaps when I was starting out for the first 2-3 years that, it's easier to ask people when they're a lot smaller, I guess. And you do feel that promise of, oh, well, they've got a blog. If I send them something, it'll be fine. I mean, I remember doing that once very, very early on. And somebody said, oh, I've got a blog. It's got all these followers, or this is like, all the stats. Send me a skein of yarn, and we'll do a competition, and blah, blah, blah. And, when you're starting out and your confidence is low, and you are just, you're trying to get a foot in the door, and you do it. And what I didn't do was check those stats. I should have done. And I learned very quickly, after that never happened again, because it turns out they were a complete fabrication. And the skein of yarn that I sent as a prize for some giveaway, that never materialized. And unfortunately, the more that these things happen, you harden up pretty quick, and you've got to. I have a bit of reputation for saying no, and I very quickly learned to say no to almost everything. So, yeah, but it was a lot to do with those early experiences of being burnt, being asked, exposure payment, and they're not really working out.
It's definitely a thing, and this is the hard thing, because like hacking someone else's audience, like being featured on someone's blog or their podcast or whatever, if there's a really good crossover between the kind of people you want to reach and your kind of target market, and it's done in a really holistic, good way where you're providing value for their listeners or their readers, and it all comes across as being very informative and educational and interesting to them, then it can work really well. But then, like you said, there's the ones who are the chancers who just want a bit of free yarn, and they're like, and these are normally, I find, the cheeky ones who are like, so you send me your yarn and I'll give you exposure and this is what you get. And then when you look at it, you're like, no,
Yeah,
like literally no. And the idea that exposure is a currency, I can't go and buy anything for my kids for their tea with exposure out the co-op, can I? Like, they're not going to give me a pizza. There you go, there's some exposure. I'll put you on my Instagram, you checkout lady at co-op, with this pizza that I've just got for my kids, and hold it up and I'll put you on my Instagram and I'll pay you with that. No, nobody else, nowhere else is this a thing other than creative industries, and I really don't get where it's coming from, per se. And it just seems to be something that is peculiar to creative industries, and that women suffer from most. Not saying that it's always women, but I don't see as many men saying that they have the same problem, because arguably they're a bit more willing to go, no, you pay me for it, this is my rate.
I do have a member of staff, a male member of staff, who has his own art business, and I've been speaking to him about this because he also arranges events and things as well. And he's been saying as well that even in the art industry, where there are probably a lot more men than there are in the knitting, he's saying it's exactly the same thing, that men are being asked as well to work for exposure. So yeah.
Yeah, and again, a creative industry, and I don't disagree at all. Clearly, with that's his experience, and it is a thing. But it's peculiar to creative industries. You don't go to an accountant and go, "Come and do this work for me for exposure." Nobody does that. Nobody goes and asks their accountant to work for free. So I feel like it is peculiar to because creative things are a little bit less tangible. Maybe they're less valued. Maybe it's a case of, especially for us with handicrafts, which is kind of like a bit of a disparaging word to use for what is private art or textile art. I mean, that was traditionally seen as something the upper classes did, the upper class women did to kind of keep them occupied.
Yes. A lot of craft industry is seen as hobbyists. And it's like, well, if what I'm doing is a hobby, this is one hell of an expensive hobby.
Hobbies generally are.
It's like, okay, right, but no, it's a tricky one. So.
It is definitely, and it's something that does need to. It will take everyone turning around and saying, you know what, no, like if I don't value my work, neither will anyone else, and I won't work for free or for exposure on your terms. You telling me whether I'm a bloke, a woman, an artist, a fibre artist, a pottery maker, whatever, because the professional industries, in kind of inverted commas, they never do that. They'll do pro bono work that they decide to do as part of their work, but it's never expected that they will work for exposure. It's something different. It's part of the kind of corporate culture and all that kind of stuff, corporate giving or whatever. But this idea of exposure as payment is a tricky one, because we had a little conversation about this beforehand offline, and I'm in two camps, and I feel like exposure as a payment when someone is coming telling you what they want you to do, and you don't have a choice about it, and give me all of this and I will give you exposure in return, an unfair exchange of value, versus I have this opportunity, say working at a big conference, and I'm looking for volunteers to come work behind the scenes and handle the big name speakers, and be part of my team and see how an event works, and get to speak to these people that in a big event, say in the States or even here, like you're not going to get a chance to speak to them because they're going to be surrounded by people all the time. You have the opportunity to get in there and have a conversation, exposure, so not being necessarily paid, but not being told, right, I expect you to do this and give me this much stock and this and this, and I'm deciding everything, versus, well, I get something else that is valuable to me that otherwise I might have to pay for, and I'm choosing to do this with that as a payment exposure, are kind of two different things in my head.
They are.
I don't know that you agree with that. So what do you think?
I don't know. The thing is, I don't really have that many thoughts on it, because I sort of purposefully stepped away from working with many people. I mean, I will be honest, I am open to working with other people and collaborating and what have you, but I like to have a firm discussion beforehand and say, how do I benefit and how are you going to benefit? And if they sort of match up reasonably equally, then I think it can work. If I think there is an imbalance of it being, one of us benefiting more than the other, then I don't think that's going to work. And that makes me feel uneasy. And I think some of the exposure thing comes into that as well, that the spotlight is on one rather than both. I mean, I've walked away from collaborations before because, the standards weren't right and things. But yeah, I just kind of feel when it comes to exposure, things need to be of equal benefit. And if it's not of equal benefit, then it isn't worth doing.
Absolutely. It comes back to that kind of fair exchange of value thing. In my head, it's like, well, if this is an unequal exchange, then it never works, because someone's always unhappy with what is being exchanged. Whereas if, like you said, it's an equal thing and everyone stands to benefit, and it's a synergistic, I'm such a management bank wanker, synergistic, like everyone benefits, like you benefit, that, like I said, this firm, this restaurant will benefit, the charity will benefit, everyone gets equal platform, everyone together gets something bigger than themselves apart, is one thing. Insulting your highly educated, very professional knit group and customers and clientele, by calling us all middle-aged shit tea drinkers, not what I would call fair exchange of value, personally.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Oh, quality. So, which kind of leads us into like another point you've brought up, really, about the misogyny of it. And I know, like you said, you talked about your male staff member, and he's also been offered exposure as payment as an artist and all that kind of stuff. But there's taking it away from that exposure piece, really, and into the misogynistic kind of little woman, never mind, all the men get the highlights and you just turn up and do what we tell you. How do you find that from a kind of, as an artist and as a businesswoman, like, because I read an article today, and it was shared by one of my male friends who I respect greatly. He's a great guy, and it was a list of all the best speakers in the UK at the moment. And it's International Women's Day, right? International Women's Day. Is it a list of female speakers? No. Where's the first female speaker in the list? Of course, because it's a bros gang. She's 2/3 of the way down, and there's about 20% are female speakers, and the rest are all middle-aged white men. No people of any other ethnic makeup. And I'm just like, I don't want to be like rabidly feminist about this, but there's something deeply ironic about how you've written this and then released it on this day that is still like, well, women are still at the bottom of the list and they're still underrepresented. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts as a kind of, as a strong female business owner, with, and you are very passionate about equality, women's rights, all that kind of stuff. What have you experienced, and what are your thoughts on like the misogyny we suffer as crafters and business ladies?
I have experienced a lot of misogyny. There is this idea that apparently I have a rich husband who bankrolls me, which is why I'm in the city centre of Manchester on a 3-story, studio and what have you. And it's like, actually, I refuse to take my husband's money. I've built this. So that's number one. There is this idea that I have this rich husband who's paying for it for my big hobby. And that's not true. This is actually a business. I've experienced it a few times. Sometimes when, small things, everyday sexism, where we have the delivery drivers come with great big boxes. These boxes can be like 30, 40 kilos. Not heavy, but heavy, right? And they're there and they're struggling with them, and they're like, oh, love, do you have to order such big stuff? And then they're like struggling with them and making a big drama and song and dance about it. And I just bend down, pick it up and walk off with it. And they're like, what the fuck? It's simple. It's little things like that just add up. There's other things as well. When I was having viewings in my old studio, because, the landlord was selling the place, and he was having investors coming in. And some of the things that were said to me, like, oh, this business, this must be a labour of love. And somebody said, oh, well, when is your husband coming to show me round? It's things, it's like, come on. It's things like that. And I've experienced it an awful lot. And I've always wrongly struggled with how I identify myself as a business person. And it wasn't until I met my accountant for the first time, like 3-4 years ago. And he made me realise, that I needed to be proud of what I am doing, because there was this part of me in my head that was going, oh, this is just a little lady business, isn't it? I'm not really that proud of it. And he went, no, You do imports and exports. You're a manufacturer and you're a retail business. Woman up. That's what he said to me. And it was at that point, it was like this amazing epiphany of, oh, wow, he's actually right. This is what I do. But when you have this everyday sexism constantly telling you these things, you start believing them yourself, because as women, we're conditioned to, we're not supposed to stick our heads above the parapet. We're not supposed to question things. We're supposed to say yes to exposure. And we're supposed to, behave in this way. To have this accountant say to me, no, your business is way bigger than you think it is. This is what you do. And it's like, wow, okay. Not quite the hobby business then. So yeah, I have experienced a lot of misogyny in business.
It is. It's tricky. And like you said, there's a lot of conditioning in the background, and it's almost that cumulative effect, that everyday chipping away, little bits here, little bits there, that becomes the new normal. It's like the thermidor effect. When you stick a lobster in a pan and you turn it on when it's cold and they just cook alive because it's only getting incrementally warmer. So you don't notice the change. And I think, it's, like you say, even if it's little things like delivery men treating you like a little princess, and whinging about doing their job. Get on with it.
Do your job. I can pick these boxes up. What are you on about? You
need to go pump some iron, dude. Get on with it. It's that everyday effect that it seems like small things, and I think if you're not subjected to it on an everyday basis, you just think, oh well, that's nothing. It's just a little thing. It just becomes the new normal. It becomes accepted because it's such incremental little things that chip away. It's almost like water torture. And you're just dripping on your forehead, and eventually you just start to believe that actually, when you've been told that your business is a hobby so many times, that it's not a proper, inverted commas, business, until someone else who's completely apart from it turns around and says, wow, if you can make, and I've had this, if you can make money in knitting, you can make money anywhere. Like, I can't believe you can make money in knitting. Yeah, you can. And like you say, an importer, an exporter, a manufacturer, a retailer, that sounds impressive and like disassociated from what you do, but that's exactly what you do. And it's exactly what the other yarnies and pattern designers and everything else do. And it is a little bit frustrating at times because, again, that like patterns, people are charging peanuts for them, and people are being bullied out of putting an extra quid on their pattern prices and all of this by other people who buy our work. And you just think, actually, the knitters are so far ahead of a lot of other industries. Like, you've got Ravelry, and you're doing your own patterns, you're self-publishing, you're making books, you're doing all kinds of stuff, and have been doing it for years before the rest of the internet caught up. But yet we all still treat it like, oh, it's just knitting. It's very frustrating. It's frustrating to me as well. And I'm not carrying 40-kilogram boxes of yarn, so...
Hey, not bad for a bird who used to be on crutches, eh?
Exactly, that's the funny thing. It's like the way you just throw your crutch to one side and pick the box up and then pick it back up again. Oh, crazy. So, taking it then, because we've picked out 3 themes, didn't we? And the next thing that you kind of brought up was charity as a bit of an excuse for bad behaviour, I would say here. In like, not paraphrasing, you didn't say that, but to me it feels like charity is an excuse for bad behaviour. And it kind of disappoints me as well that it was a homeless charity or homelessness as a cause that was used, because I know you do actually every year support the Mustard Tree in Manchester. It is a homelessness charity. You do your own charity event for that, and you actually like do something proper and donate decent amount of money to them. Like you do already do that as a thing.
Yes.
How did that it must have really got on your tits, I must say. How did that go down for you?
It did. I mean, when he came in, and he was absolutely lovely, very, he seemed like he knew his stuff, and he was saying it was for a homeless charity. It wasn't for Mustard Tree, it was for a different one in the area, and instantly I'm like, okay, I'm listening, because I do already do some fundraising for a homelessness charity. It is something quite important to me. So I was willing to listen to his proposition. But when I read the brief and saw that charity was barely mentioned, it was all about return on investment for him and this restaurant, and the idea of the charity was just completely secondary. It felt like a masquerade, to be quite honest. It was an afterthought, like something almost to hide behind. It's like, oh, I know, we will appeal to these, inverted commas, middle-aged women by making them feel sorry for homeless people and getting them in here. We'll feed them shit tea and tray bake, and they're going to be really happy with this because they're going to be spending money with us, and they'll then buy meals and stuff, but they'll be throwing some money to charity as well. And the whole thing just stank. For me, if you do a charity event, it's solely about the charity.
Yes.
That's what it has to be. I don't know, I get asked a lot, can you do this, that and the other for charity? And very, very rarely does it feel positive. It just doesn't feel like it always comes from the right place. And I'm really, really glad that I stuck to my policy of I need this in writing. Because if I had agreed to this charity event and then later on realised what this was actually about, that would actually... that could have been very damaging to my business and also my integrity. And morally, it would not have sat right with me at all, because the sums they were coming up with, the charity would have made very little. And that's just not on.
No, it's very...
Not when the sums were showing that the restaurant would have made an absolute killing in comparison.
No, and you're absolutely right there. It's about, if you're going to do something for charity, let the charity be the focus. And it's about that giving attitude of, well, yeah, you're probably going to get some kickback, you might get a bit of PR, but actually that's secondary to the fact that you want to support something that you believe in and do something positive, and use your craft for something positive, and use your business for something positive.
Yes.
And to kind of all work together to do that freely, not thinking, well, what's in it for me all the time? That's not the point of charity.
Yeah.
But then you have, because you decided, bless you, and that's not in a disparaging way, it's in a, she's on one, I love it when she's in this mood. You decided...
when I'm on one.
Oh yeah. This is why we're friends, but we're not really friends, obviously, because you don't have any friends officially, but if you did, then we would be.
Yeah.
Why you decided to kind of give them a little bit of a schooling, really, because I mean, this is all, like, we've had these conversations and it feels quite negative that we're still like International Women's Day, let's all celebrate women, but we're still doing this everyday bullshit every day. These things are happening again and again and again, and people are getting away with it, and we don't want that. Because that's my attitude to life. Like, don't whinge about it. What can you do? Do something. Even a little thing is better than nothing. So you decided not to do a little thing. You decided to give them the proverbial rods and do something and show them how you do things for charity, and to highlight the issue without giving them a platform or embarrassing them or in any way bringing their name into it, which I thought was genius, by the way.
Thank you.
So tell us about that. Tell us about shit tea and tray bake. And if I want exposure, I will get my tits out.
Right. It started off before we left for our week off. We made a quick video which we put on Instagram of me doing a little bit of a spoof, inviting people to come to my knit group because we have shit tea and tray bakes. And that sort of broke the internet a little bit. That was quite amusing. And but people were a little bit, what's going on? Someone's really not the Countess. What's going on?
She's a holiday.
Yeah, so I got a holiday. And I went on holiday and chilled out. And it gave me time to think, is this the right thing to do? And it's like, yeah, totally is. So I came back and I'm like, right, this is what we're doing. We need to dye. Originally, it was just going to be the one colourway. Shit tea and tray bake, and basically, which is highlighting what this guy wrote in this email, because apparently we are middle-aged knitters who are happy to be served shit tea and cheap tray bakes from Macro or whatever. I can tell you now that I don't drink shit tea. So,
Me
you know,
neither. I'm northern. That is deeply offensive to me.
I
Deeply
know,
offensive.
I know, right? So, so I went off on a rant on Instagram, and then I just wrote, and if I want exposure, I will get my tits out. Well, there were loads of people go, you have to make that into a colourway. So one colourway became two. So we have two colourways on 3 yarn bases. We originally dyed the prototypes, 40 of each colour, sold out pretty much instantly. Put the whole lot on pre-order. As of 6 a.m. this morning, these only went live yesterday about 10:30. So as of 6 a.m. this morning, 374 skeins have been sold. My notifications bar keeps dinging, so that could be a lot higher right now. One of the things that I wanted to do was actually make money for charity, because, you know, why should I just benefit from this? Because the support I have received has just been incredible, absolutely overwhelmingly incredible. You know, it's been so good. I've almost replied to every single message. Like,
very unlike you.
I know, right? I know. But, you know, I'm trying to keep up. I'm trying my best. There's just been hundreds of messages of support. There've been people who have said, I'm on a yarn diet, or, you know, the yarn, it's not the colours I'd use. I'm going to make a donation in your name. And the charity that I have chosen is Women's Aid, which is British UK organisation that to help with domestic violence. I have been in the situation many years ago where I needed the help of Women's Aid, and they are somebody always in my heart. So yes, you know, it is, sometimes it's nice when you're in a much better place in your life to be able to look back and just give something back, no matter how big or small, just as an acknowledgement to say, you really helped me out, thank you. So that's what we've done. So as of 6 a.m. this morning, we have made £1,122 for Women's Aid. That figure appears to keep going up because the sales keep coming in. Absolutely incredible. Honestly, I'm just, yeah, I'm absolutely stunned. The support that I've received has been incredible. I haven't experienced anything negative. The only negativity I have seen is a funny one. I've been shadow banned on Instagram, or rather my hashtag shittea and traybake has been shadow banned on Instagram in an amazing, ironic, you know, quietly. It's like, you've got to laugh. You've just got to laugh. It's like, what on earth? But yeah. So you can see as much porn on Instagram as you want, but apparently shit tea is banned. Understandably.
I can see why people are deeply offended by it. I'm like, yeah, boobs, whatevs. But bring shit tea into it when you're British, especially when you're Northern, and then people like lose their minds. They lose their minds. I love that. It's so funny. I feel like you've made it. Like when you've been shadow banned on a post that's got like 7 posts with the hashtag on, and you get shadow banned. I feel like you've conquered Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. I'm totally rock and roll now. I have made it. I can retire.
Amazing. I would have to make it like a life's work though to see exactly how random a hashtag I can get banned. Like I would feel the need to push it now to see how far you could go with it. But that's just amazing. And people are, I think, sick of being silenced. I think they're sick of being treated as a joke. I think they're sick of misogyny. I think they're sick of crafters not being compensated properly. And actually, like the fact you've turned around and gone, no, this isn't good enough, and I don't accept this, and no, I'm not going to name and shame you, but I will. This is how you do it. Watch and learn, sunshine. You know, and I'm not, I mean, I've only been buying your yarn anyway for a year, 18 months. I've got so much. And even I was like, oh, for God's sake, okay, you've got me, fine. Just so I can knit it into a pussy hat. And
yes.
That's a whole other episode. I said I would never reveal my views on that, but I think if you don't know my views on that by now, you probably shouldn't be listening anymore because you've missed the point. But, you know, like, everyone has been so supportive of it, and I think it's an amazing thing, and that's why I wanted to get you on, so we could have a bigger conversation around it, kind of from the horse's mouth. Not I'm calling you a horse clearly, but have that where people can hear what your thoughts on it as as a person, rather than the Countess, the words that you write on Instagram and all that kind of stuff. But you did refuse to name and shame them, which I think is quite graceful.
I did. There is a reason for this. Basically, by refusing to name and shame them, I've denied them a platform in which they can redeem themselves. So they've basically been silenced. Pretty much like we're all conditioned to be silenced. They have been silenced. I don't want them to benefit negatively or positively from this experience. Basically, what we have done is we have rendered them completely irrelevant, and that is how we have fought back. They can't spin this into some amazing PR stunt because I've refused to give them that power.
I love that. I love that. It's just because any PR can be good PR. Like, you've got to be so careful.
Yeah, absolutely. They can just sit on the sidelines and go, "Oh God, we fucked up." So,
and we're not even benefit from it. And the knitters are not coming. And someone's bought a job lot of shit tray bake and tea. What are we going to do with that now?
Yeah.
Oh, hilarious. And again, the irony is like, well, you're going to give all the middle-aged ladies shit tea and tray bake, but the homeless people don't get any. Like, you're not going to look after them. You know what I mean? Idiots. Oh, I love that. So if people want to get involved then and come and get some shit tea, I can't say it without snorting. I really can't. Awesome. If I want exposure, I will get my tits out.
Yes.
Where do they need to come?
They need to come to my website at www.countessablaze.com. At the moment, they are on pre-orders. That means that we will dye this to order. You're going to have to give us a few weeks. We're looking at about 2 weeks at the minute, possibly slightly more. But I've got a team here, and we're confident that we can get this done. Please forgive us if we go slightly over that. I hope you will forgive us if we do go slightly over, but we're not anticipating any problems. And we have got all the yarn we need here. I made sure I got the yarn in beforehand.
Very obvious.
Actually, a lot of that yarn was destined for a shop update, but no, that's not happening.
No. This is too important. The shop can wait.
It's absolutely, that can wait. It's more important that we can do this. There are 3 yarn bases. There is Lady Persephone sock yarn, which is blue-faced Leicester nylon, which is our most popular yarn. Then we've got Tia Merino, which is the superwash merino single ply that a lot of you like, because it's still cold in a lot of places, like here. Then we've got the Gran Merino DK, superwash DK weight merino. So yeah, we don't want at this point to be offering up even more yarn bases. We need to keep this as easy and simple to do. As you can appreciate, we've got a lot to dye, which means there's a lot to send out, and we want to make sure we get these accurate. So yeah, it's better for us if we limit the number of yarn bases at this time.
Yeah, definitely. And then you can get your donation over to Women's Aid even quicker.
Absolutely,
which is the main thing, isn't it?
Yes.
So if people don't necessarily want to get involved in yarn at this point, then they can just as easily do a donation directly, like some people already have, donate directly to a women's charity or Women's Aid or somewhere in your local area
Absolutely.
that supports these kinds of issues directly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, you have a lot of yarn to dye.
Yes.
A misogynist to kill and shoot down.
This is why I've got the big boots on today.
Yeah, well, don't mess. She's got big boots on, so
yeah, to fight the patriarchy day when I've got these on.
Oh, indeed. So I will put all the links anyway in the show notes for people, just in case they're on the move and they can't get on there just now. But if you want to see the backstory as well, or some of the kind of story as it's developed, you can go over and check out Lyndsey on Instagram at Countess Ablaze. as well there. But Lyndsey, thank you for coming and having this conversation with me. I feel it is going to spark some more ideas for content for me, in particular on and around these sorts of issues. So thank you.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me back.
Always, always. So there you are. I hope you enjoyed that conversation between Lyndsey and I. It was one that I felt like needed to be had, and as I said at the beginning, one that I really wanted to share with you and give you some more of that background around what this thing is that she's doing, why she's doing it, and so you could get the story from her, really. And so we can all kind of think about how we can give two fingers to this ridiculous, idea of exposure as a payment, of the misogyny that is just pervasive every day, and to keep this idea of charity as being a bit of an excuse, like it's an afterthought. Either make it the focus of what you do or don't bother, to be honest, in my opinion. So I'm very grateful for her coming on to the show and talking some more about that. In case you're wondering, I succumbed. Of course, I got. If I want exposure, I will get my tits out on the Grand Merino. I call it Grande Merino because it feels a little bit posher when you say it like that. But it's a super nice flumpy kind of base, and I will be knitting it into some kind of protest hat. So there you go. That's my take on it. And sometimes it is about these little subversive acts. It's about bringing people together behind a cause. It's about making people think, and that can be more powerful sometimes than these big shows of defiance or big campaigns or whatever else. And like I said, I do struggle a little bit sometimes with the concept that we still need an International Women's Day to celebrate and support women for what they are. But equally, if not that, then what else? So I'm very much of the opinion that even cheeky protests and subversive protest, or taking a protest and making it into a positive thing towards a charity and all this kind of stuff is good stuff. Pretty much all action is good action in my book. So it prompted me into action as well, as you can see, because you're hearing me talking to you again. Along with Lyndsey, you know how hard it is to get her on a podcast. It's impossible. I'm the only person who's ever managed it, and to do it twice, well, she must be pretty angry, and she must have something to say, and me as well. I definitely wanted to share this with you, and to have this conversation around this issue. So I hope you have enjoyed the show this week. I will be back with more, and I'm looking forward very much to spending time with you again very soon. So have a great week, and I will speak to you soon. Cheers! You've been listening to the Shiny Bees podcast. Show notes for this episode are available on the website at shinybees.com. And if you've enjoyed this episode, if you would do me the great nitty honour of leaving me a review over on iTunes to help other people find the show as well, that would be awesome. Have a great week.
I feel a need to laugh again with you, if that's alright.